So you really are building this full fleshed out human. It's a fictional character, but it's based off of the data and based off of the behaviors that you observe. So our hard body Harry, he lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and he is a sales consultant, but he's super, super into bodybuilding, and he goes to the gym twice a day. He's been doing this for the past 3 years, and now he's preparing for his first bodybuilding competition. Then you give a little bit of details about his own life and his purchasing behavior and what his average day looks like. All of those details, which seem like, why do I need to know or like invent this information about this person? Well, it's so that you can get into his psyche. If you don't know Harry well enough, how are you ever going to understand what his challenges are, what his goals are, what his really underlying fears are even? You have to be able to connect emotionally to this fictional person in order to understand how to talk to them and what type of visuals and what type of, photos or design or messaging is really going to hit home with them.
Episode 62 at Winning at Work with Tessa Bicard. Tessa is the Vice President of Marketing at Trifecta, an organic meal delivery company. They have very aggressive growth plans, and that's why she's there. She heads up about a 20-person best-in-class marketing team. They are a direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand. And a little bit more about her background. She reports directly to the CEO. She's responsible for creative, content, performance marketing teams. She sets the KPIs, all the trackable metrics that positively affect the company's, as I mentioned, very ambitious business goals. If you want to cut through the noise and make sure that your absolute ideal customer, when they see your brand, when they see an advertisement, they realize this is the brand that I've been missing. It needs to be in my life, and it's solving a problem, a big, big problem that I'm having. And she walks us through the process from start to finish, how you go about identifying and building out the buyer persona and then marketing to that person. And she also warns of a trap that it's very common that you find one channel or one particular platform that works, you got some results, and then you plow all of your marketing budget into it. That is not a strategy that she would recommend. She was so kind to all of our listeners here that she is offering a promotional code. If you want to try Trifecta and kind of add this science-based nutrition so you can crush your diet, crush your goals, you can get 40% off your first order by using the code WAW40. So the promo code is WAW40. Tessa, thank you so much for offering that up to all the listeners. So I hope all of you guys go out after you listen to this podcast and check out their really cool advertisements. Please go to the website and check out their meal plan and see if it works in your life. So stay tuned. We've got a fantastic episode. This episode is brought to you by Join Us Search Group. Join Us is a national food and beverage executive search company specializing in sales, marketing, innovation, and operations. Stay tuned for today's episode. Well, Tessa, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I'm really excited to chat today.
Well, this is such an interesting brand. I think many of us have, experienced the, meal delivery service. I know for the longest time I was using one. And when I noticed your brand, there was something about the digital marketing. There was just something there that was really captivating to me. And I wanted to have you on the program just to really pick your brain. You are the marketing expert. I'm really curious to learn more about Trifecta and just your marketing genius. Not many people refer to themselves as a nerd, but you do.
Yes, I am a self-proclaimed marketing nerd, marketing dork, data dork, whatever you want to call me. I am really fascinated by marketing. I am the vice president of marketing here at Trifecta Nutrition. I've been with the company for almost 3 years. And prior to Trifecta, I was also working in health and fitness for an agency specifically focused on sort of gyms and overall wellness sort of spaces. So when I started at Trifecta, it was a very comfortable sort of niche for me already. And Trifecta sort of has come a long way in the meal delivery space, I believe, because we have taken a strong position with our marketing and our marketing niche. If you haven't already been to our website, it's pretty obvious right off the bat, or any of our social media channels. We specialize in meal delivery that is macro balanced and science backed to actually improve your nutrition and improve your overall nutritional balance. That's been very successful for us. And I think that any brand that, especially, starter brands or direct to consumer brands or new brands that are launching into their market, if they don't take a strong position on who their best audience fit is, they tend to market to everyone and anyone. And that's where your message can get confusing or confused very easily. And your ideal customer might not immediately recognize, oh, this is the brand for me. And as marketers and as business people who are trying to acquire new customers or new clients or new listeners or whatever you may be seeking, knowing who your ideal customer is sort of step number one, and then trying to find where they are spending their time and the energy, and then spending time in that same location or that same venue, whether that's digitally or physically. That's kind of going to be a secret to your success.
So how did you determine that your marketplace was going to be large enough for you to be successful? Because I think people can go through the exercise and say, okay, this is what my ideal customer looks like. But where do you go to get that data to verify, okay, it's a big enough piece of the pizza that we can live on that slice?
There are a lot of very expensive reports that you can go out and acquire. You can talk to some consultants or some experts if you want to go that route. There's a lot of value to be found in relying on some of the experts to sort of scrape this data and give you the information if you feel like you're totally lost and starting to ask yourself those questions. There's also the sort of DIY route, which is hunting around on Google Analytics, understanding Google Trends. There's tons of free tools online. We are living in this beautiful digital age where information is of no short supply. So you can pretty much find what you're looking for somewhere on the internet. Understanding whether or not that source is the most reliable or exactly what you're looking for is something you're going to have to sort out for yourself. But there's definitely ways that you can do that. For my own sort of starting place when I'm working with new brands, where I start is just sort of typing into Google very simply the type of industry or the type of character archetype or buyer persona, as we refer to them. What are the types of interests? What other brands are they following? Doing a little bit of stalking on LinkedIn or your other social media, what have you. You can find out a lot about people because they volunteer a ton of information, especially via their social media channels.
That is such a great point. I know when I'm trying to get into a new space, you can literally find people who are already in the space, go to their LinkedIn profile and see all the groups that they're a part of. And it's like, didn't even know those existed. Mm-hmm. Well, you and I talked a little bit offline, and your passion really came through. The way you market, you're combining, art and science. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I think that I am fascinated by marketing because there is this dual aspect of the art and the science. There's a lot of data points, like I was just mentioning. There's a lot of information that you can garner from the internet, from your own studies, from your own surveys. That information is so powerful. But without a creative force behind it, without making some of these assumptions, without bringing your own experience, like as a human, into the consideration, it would be very it would be very almost clinical to try to market in that way, just using data points. So in marketing, I think one of my colleagues told me the other day, I'm just going to keep doing crazy stuff in marketing until someone tells me to stop. And sometimes I feel that way as well. We try a lot of things. We have an entire creative sort of agency internally here at Trifecta. Our creative team is internal, and they're a bunch of really smart, amazing creators. We've got, videographers and photographers and graphic designers and motion graphics designers and our creative director. And they're all putting together these really, really beautiful graphics or videos or stories or visual storytelling. And the cool thing about then layering on the science piece is that it's not just the aesthetic and we're, making our own judgment about whether or not that's a beautiful photo. We actually get the real-time feedback using our closed loop data reporting. So we can put an image out there. You can actually A/B test it against a different image, and you can have two beautiful photographs. But depending on what goal you're trying to achieve, does this one perform better than the other one? Well, that gives us the information that we need, and then we can tweak and adjust and move forward from there. It's no longer just someone's opinion. That's part of it, but there's also the data that you can use to back up your opinion. So that's kind of what I mean by the art and science.
You mentioned this closed loop, this data testing. I mean, how does that work exactly? That sounds exactly what people need when they come up with a great idea, to be able to actually, verify and show people, hey, we're making progress. This is getting traction. This is engaging. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's think back to sort of early marketing days. How would marketers or how would advertisers do this? They would run tests, and let's say we're talking about a print ad in a magazine. They might run two different versions of an ad, just splitting between, if you're sending out, let's say 1,000 copies of this magazine, you have 500 that run with ad version A and 500 that run with ad version B. Then tracking who are the people who actually respond to those advertising, who engages with it, who actually purchases the product. It was very analog, and therefore lots of possibility for slippage and not understanding truly which were the people who actually responded or engaged to that ad. Fortunately, in today's digital world, we have a lot more tools and a lot more information and a lot more ways of testing that, more sophisticated ways of testing that. There's a lot of actual free tools as well. Google Optimize is a free tool. If you use any of the Google Suite items for, Google Analytics or Google Search Console, you can use Google Optimize. You can use Google Data Studio. That's a great free tool as well to sort of visualize some of these tests and visualize which segments are actually responding. I'm afraid I might be talking a little bit too scientifically. I know this may sound like really scary and unapproachable. But as soon as you start learning about it, as soon as you start doing a little bit of research, these types of tools and their importance and how you can use them come to light. And of course, please use and abuse YouTube tutorials. They're kind of my go-to for learning and getting into the nitty-gritty of this kind of stuff.
But I love it. And, again, you're a self-described marketing and data nerd. So your nerd is coming out, and I love it because
your nerd is showing.
Yeah, your nerd is showing. You might want to tuck it back in. This is why, people are coming here. They want to learn more about how to do that. And I think most people would agree. Obviously, we want to drive revenue. We want to, create, engaged fans and create, brand evangelists. Eventually, though, they're going to click, they're going to go through your photos, get to the website, browse around, start placing orders, things of that nature. So just in general, I know we didn't talk about this, ahead of time, but just what do you find in general engages people the most? Is it videos of individual people or groups of people or videos? What tends to really captivate people the most?
Oh, Tony, marketers ruin everything. And so, I can tell you that for a fact, because if I told you what the secret sauce was for what works well for Trifecta, And then all the listeners went out and they're like, oh my gosh, if that works for Trifecta, I'm going to do that exact thing for my company.
Oh, boy,
it's not going to work for them. And they're going to come at me, Tessa, this is not working for me. So
I got 0 likes. Yeah.
I can tell you, like, the data shows us, and this is not from me. I was listening to one of my other favorite podcasts, Perpetual Traffic, recently. And this comes from Google. Google data shows us that the most effective image is of a young woman, around 30 years old, brunette, Caucasian, looking directly at the camera and smiling. That is the most effective combination of physical attributes for a photo to work well in a paid advertisement. So there's a lot of caveats there. Certainly don't go and find that exact photo and think that it's going to work perfectly for your business.
Once you identify that avatar, but you called it something different for your brand.
Buyer personas are what we refer to them as, and buyer personas are fictional representations of your best customer. So not necessarily even your most prevalent customer. This is your best customer. So if you, or client or listener, or what have you, if you know that you have a lot of people who purchase one time and they tend to follow the same type of behaviors or tend to have the same interests, that might be good for the short term, but it might not be great for the long-term viability of your business. It depends on what your overall business goals are. So we try to focus on the people who are going to be the best customers for us. At Trifecta, we are a subscription-based ready-to-eat meal delivery service. So it's important for us to capture those one-time buyers, but it's more important for us to capture the people who are going to really love the brand, fall in love with the brand, and then stick around for a long time, so that they get the most out of their subscription, so that they hit their fitness and their health goals, and so that they're really bought in and become natural advocates for the brand. I've been doing digital marketing for about 15 years now, so I can tell you all of the different tactics that could work or should work or will work for your brand. But I can tell you one thing, and that is the old school word of mouth marketing, in air quotes, if you will, is the gold standard of any type of marketing. You're going to put a lot more faith and stock in your brother who tells you that this is such an amazing product that he can't live without, rather than as you're scrolling by on your Facebook feed and you notice something, a new brand or a new product that you have never seen before. That paid advertisement, that means that they have, some kind of a dog in the fight. Obviously, they're paying for your attention, whereas your brother has no skin in the game. Unless he's a paid influencer, that would be weird, but it happens.
That would be weird. But to your point, though, that's a brand evangelist, and
exactly
that's what you're trying to identify, right? Is your best customer. Your brand fits into their lifestyle, and of course, this organic meal delivery. It fits in with a lot of people's lives. So
yeah.
And I will tell you though, I watched several of your video and kind of promotional videos. Very captivating. I mean, typically I don't watch video commercials, but I literally watched it several times. I mean, it was kind of intriguing. So, I guess not all commercials are created equal. I thought y'all's were. It just told the story immediately. So if people who are listening, you haven't done it yet, you definitely go watch a commercial. It's pretty. You got a pretty good one.
Oh, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. We do all of our own stuff in-house, but I know that there's a lot of fantastic agencies out there. I am, in addition to being sort of a marketing nerd, I love consuming advertising, which I know sounds crazy because most of the world are like, oh my gosh, I hate ads. I hate watching ads. I hate the ad breaks on TV. I agree with that. I don't like having my favorite show interrupted by this big ad break. However, I think that it is really fascinating and super interesting to try to capture an entire story of a brand and sort of get into the psychology of the potential buyer in these very short ad spots. I mean, a traditional ad spot might have been like a minute, like on TV. These days, you have a 6-second opportunity to capture someone in between, YouTube clips. 6 seconds. How can you tell your brand story? How can you get your overall ethos across to the person? And, we live in this digital world that attention is the commodity that everyone is after, right? Because there's a million ways for us to spend our attention. So how do you capture someone's interest in that very, very short amount of time? And how do you get them to recognize like, oh, this is a great company, or this is the product that has been missing from my life? I think it's fascinating. So I actually really like to, just in my free time, I like to watch ads and take a look at brands and sort of nerd out about that kind of thing.
Your nerd is showing again.
I know. I can't help it.
I love it though. You just said though that, where are people going to spend their interest? That's just a fascinating way of looking at it. And you also, of course, mentioned it's a 6-second window. That's kind of frightening to just boil down, like no matter where you are in sales, in marketing, literally if you're in a job hunt and you're trying to make an impression on someone, just think about what images that you're presenting to someone inside of 6 seconds. I know this is not the time for us to get into talent and resumes and things like that, but literally it's what I coach people when they're going through a job transition. Like if their resume does not have this tight theme that just jumps off the page of exactly what they do, the problems they're solving, you've lost the reader because they don't have time.
You would know better than me about this, but I read recently that the average person who is looking for a new hire, so not necessarily the recruiter, but the director who's in charge of hiring this new role, they spend an average of like 10 seconds looking at a resume before they make a decision whether or not to move forward with that candidate or not. That was shocking to me.
I know. Think about that. I mean, you literally pour your life. You're trying to pour your life, your experiences, your knowledge into black and white on paper. Now, you're a creative. Maybe you use different colors and a different color resume paper. I don't know. But for most of us, black and white. And it really just goes back to this point of you've got to have this elevator pitch. It's got to be so tight, so buttoned down.
Totally.
And, that's a topic for another time. In fact, I have other podcast episodes, about that. But let's touch on the psychology, because you hinted at it, that you kind of have to know who your best customer is. But of course, like what's going to make an impact, right? How do you tap into that psychology? This is the part that seems kind of hard for me. I get the digital, the marketing, the data, that's kind of black and white in some ways, but this is the soft gray stuff that is tricky, fuzzy.
Yes. And I think it will always be sort of shades of gray, right? So when we talk about consumer psychology, it's the best way that I can describe it, and the most effective way for us as, I'm not a trained psychologist by any means. I'm interested in it, but I've never done any higher education in it. Maybe someday I'll go back. I'm a lifelong learner, so maybe someday. Either way, when we think about consumer psychology, it is understanding who your ideal customer is and building out this fictional, almost a bio for them. So I'm going to give you an example of one of ours. We've got a hard body Harry. He's someone who, yes, also using mnemonic devices actually helps the entire team remember who these are. We've got like hard body Harry and meal prep Megan and newbie Natalie and all these. I love doing buyer personas.
Giving names to them.
Oh yeah, you give them a name, you give them an entire backstory. I used to do buyer persona workshops with a lot of my clients prior to coming to Trifecta. I'm very interested in building out buyer personas and understanding that consumer psychology. I would say that's kind of my specialty within marketing. And so you give them this entire backstory and you using some of the data and using just even some of your own research and a lot of your own gut intuition and your own human experience in life, you create this person. I would imagine, the same sort of process that a writer, a novelist might go through in terms of building out their character or what an actor might do as they're preparing for a role. So you really are building this full fleshed out human. It's a fictional character, but it's based off of the data and based off of the behaviors that you observe. So our hard body Harry, he lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and he is a sales consultant, but he's super, super into bodybuilding, and he goes to the gym twice a day. He's been doing this for the past 3 years, and now he's preparing for his first bodybuilding competition. Then you give a little bit of details about his own life and his purchasing behavior and what his average day looks like. All of those details, which seem like, why do I need to know or like invent this information about this person? Well, it's so that you can get into his psyche. If you don't know Harry well enough, how are you ever going to understand what his challenges are, what his goals are, what his really underlying fears are even? You have to be able to connect emotionally to this fictional person in order to understand how to talk to them and what type of visuals and what type of, photos or design or messaging is really going to hit home with them. They say that like 90% of our decisions are emotional, even our buying decisions, even our big purchasing decisions. They start on an emotional level because we as humans are emotional creatures. So you have to get to know your consumers in order for you to connect with them emotionally. So that's what I mean about the consumer psychology. It's like getting to know them so that you're not just like, hey, we sell meals. That's cut and dry what Trifecta does. We sell meals. Does that connect to you personally, Tony? Are you interested in hearing more?
I would just, if someone approached me and said, hey, we sell meals, would you be interested? I'd be like, I'd just kind of blow them off. I'd be like, that's just a horrible approach. I would.
Totally.
Yeah.
But if I tell you, Tony, hey, what are you struggling with these days? I bet you're probably short on time. And I bet you're probably falling victim to convenience food or, healthy or unhealthy,
Check.
Yep.
Yes.
Unhealthy comfort food or, okay.
I want to be hard body Tony. Okay. Let's just get down to it. Okay?
Tony.
I didn't want to say it. Let's just be honest.
You want to get ripped.
I want to be hard body Harry.
I hear you, Tony. Well, we can provide that, and we can provide it in a convenient way so that you don't have to do any of the cooking. Let our professional chefs cook it up for you, and all you have to do is heat it up in the comfort of your own home. In that little spiel, I'm hitting on probably some of your particular personal challenges. And I'm also giving you a vision of what your life could look like, for the better. And of course, it's very trite to say like, oh, Trifecta is going to solve all of your problems. That's obviously not the case, but it can probably help on particular challenges in your life that would incrementally make your life better. To be able to lose that last 5 pounds, or to be able to have, those 30 minutes back in the evening where you're not having to do meal prep or prepare your own meals, and this is specific to Trifecta, but you can use this in whatever industry, whatever product, whatever organization you're in.
Food and health is one of the pillars in your life. And if that pillar is weak, the other areas of your life are going to struggle. You have to have a strength and a foundation, across the board. You can't be super successful at work and have a family that is falling apart and not have it affect other areas. It just goes across the board. So I just had this epiphany. You were describing hard body Harry and the kind of work you did to create who he was, what his day was looking like. And I had an instant flashback to your commercial.
Well, that's how we use our personas. Yeah.
There it was, folks. Go after you're done listening to this, I want you to go and you're going to see hard body Harry.
Absolutely.
And the struggles he has at work, he's got to fit these meals. Okay. That makes perfect sense. But I mean, okay. So here's the thing. How do you know you're right? I struggle with, I think I know, what this person might be dealing with, but how do you test that? And it could be an expensive way to test something, if you're wrong.
Yes, it can be. And sometimes it is. If you are making a lot of assumptions and you think you're on the right path, and then you put a lot of your eggs in that basket and then it doesn't end up panning out, that can be a very expensive mistake. And that's where the importance of having a holistic marketing mix becomes very important. So what I mean by that is, and business owners especially, and I hope that there may be some business owners or CEOs listening to this, when it comes to marketing, they tend to sometimes be a little bit narrow focused. So say you have found some success on one of your Instagram ads. You decided to do a paid placement on Instagram. You spent a couple of $1,000s and it worked well. You got a couple of sales out of it. Well, awesome. What is the immediate inclination? It's to focus all of your marketing dollars and energy and resources on what's working well, which can work for a short time. But if you don't continue some of your other channels, if you don't continue some of your other target audiences, if you don't continue marketing those messages to some of your other buyer personas, you may pigeonhole yourself and you may eventually paint yourself into a corner where, okay, now this for some reason, the algorithm changed, let's say. People are always talking about that.
Yes, that's the first thought I had with what happens. Yes.
Yep. Well, if you are investing, it's the same idea about diversifying your portfolio of investment. You want to diversify your marketing mix. And so that when things change, when the markets change, when the algorithm changes, when, outside forces are giving you additional pressure, that you're not painted into a corner. And now you have to start totally from square one on a different channel or with this huge budget that you haven't been building up. So there's a diversifying of channels, which is very important in marketing. So don't only do Facebook ads, don't only do pay-per-click ads or SEM, don't only do organic, SEO tactics, et cetera, or email. Make sure you're doing a mix of all of those. Also make sure that you are testing out which of your buyer personas are the most effective and which ones are engaging the most. And you can observe that through, of course, there's lots of tools that you can find online, but you can do that just through general observation and sort of anecdotal evidence, looking at, okay, these are the types of people who are liking our Facebook page, or these are the types of people who are following our Instagram page. And like I said, do a little bit of stalking and a little bit of understanding what other brands they're following, what other types of people they're following, what other interests they have. And you can do a certain amount of even demographic digging in and research, again, with free tools like Google Analytics and some others that are out there.
Yeah, I think the light bulb is shining a little brighter for me because you've got you have your ideal and you've connected with them, but maybe they're on Instagram, but that same ideal customer is still, in other channels. So your job and that's kind of what you're telling me is like, you need to find where else do they go. You can't just you're still going after your ideal customer. You're just looking for them when they show up in all the other 4, 5, 6, 10 other places they could be, right?
Exactly. And there may be, depending on what industry you're in or what product you're selling, there may be specific channels that are more in line with your particular customer. There's say you're a video game manufacturer, or you're trying to launch a new video game or something like that. Well, Twitch would be a great platform for you to sort of dig into, or Reddit, or maybe Quora. That might not be the case for an insurance company for boats or something. I'm just pulling ideas out of my basket. But
good. Boat insurance people, we can't help you because we don't know.
They might. Oh, and here's the other thing that I do want to point out, and something that, especially B2B, I work in a obviously direct-to-consumer brand right now, but I have worked with lots of B2B brands in the past, and they tend to think, well, I'm a B2B brand, I should only be spending time on what's the B2B social media channel? LinkedIn. But guess what? All the people who are on LinkedIn, they're also humans in their spare time. They're not just business people. So that means that they're probably spending time on Instagram, or they're probably spending time on Clubhouse, or they're probably spending time on TikTok. They're spending time on these other platforms when they're not being the business person. So how about in my, say you're a B2B brand that is selling a new, let's just keep it easy, a new marketing podcast. You're trying to market this new marketing podcast. I can go on LinkedIn and I can find the marketing groups and I can try to do some advertising there. But what if this particular marketer that I'm trying to reach is in her spare time in the evening, perusing her TikTok and thinking in the back of her head, wow, I really want to level up my SEO marketing. How can I do that? And then all of a sudden she sees an ad for this awesome SEO marketing podcast. Well, it doesn't matter that I'm on TikTok and it's in the evening on my free time. I'm still going to be interested in that content. So don't only think I'm a B2B brand. I'm only marketing to professionals. Therefore, I should only be on the professional social media channels. There is lots of opportunity. The game is, where are people spending their time and where are they spending their attention, and trying to be in front of them as much as possible.
Yeah. And it just shows the complexity that, current day marketing organizations have. Because a lot of times it's like, hey, I don't know what they do over there, right? I'm in finance or supply chain, or their culinary, or their innovation. You're really pulling the curtain back and showing it's a lot harder than what people think. I can see where being a data nerd could really help, because that's what you have to figure out is we know they're on TikTok. What's going to resonate? How do I create see, that's the trick, right? Because you can't put the same ad, I wouldn't think, that you might run on LinkedIn on TikTok. You're going to get laughed at on TikTok.
Absolutely. Yeah. Understanding those different ecosystems and understanding that people are in a different mindset, right? So they may be the exact same person. I might be Tessa on TikTok and then Tessa on LinkedIn, but I'm going to be in a sort of a different mindset depending on what type of content I'm consuming on LinkedIn and what type of content will resonate with me on TikTok. So it's important that you understand those ecosystems as well. And
it's a little
trial
daunting.
and error.
I think it's a little daunting, I think.
It is, especially if you're like a single business owner. I get this all the time. I have a real heart for small businesses. I've worked in businesses of all shapes and sizes, anywhere from startups to, Fortune 500 companies. And I have a real heart for small businesses because sometimes they have an amazing product or an amazing service or something that is so awesome. But if they're not getting their marketing lined up, they're not going to find the right audience, or they're not going to find the customer base that's going to actually end up floating their business. And that's really sad for me. So I like consulting with small businesses and giving them okay, you can't do all of these things, but where can you start? The feeling of this is very daunting to me and I don't know where to start is very, very common for small business owners or small business people. But hopefully that's not a paralysis of I'm not going to do anything because I don't even know where to start. There's always a starting place and there's always something that you can bite off.
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant? And that's just how they're going to have to start. Well, when you mentioned that, the first really industry that came to my mind was the plant-based food. And there's that huge plant-based food association. They're based out in California, and they have companies. They're, I don't know, maybe 250 member companies. A lot of them are pre-rev, and some of them have been bought. It's a lot of disruption going on in that space right now, but that's a real interesting association. And I imagine folks in there that are listening to this are kind of jotting your name down, because that's what happens. You get these great ideas in your kitchen, right? Yeah. And suddenly your friends love it. You go to the farmer's market and it sells out. And they're like, hey, how can I buy this online? Like, I don't have a website. Well, I do, and that's how it starts. And all of a sudden now you've kind of launched this e-commerce food business. And to your point, it can be very daunting. When you and I were talking offline, we discovered we had a lot of things in common. I don't think we're going to have time to go into the Clifton Strengths Finder, but you and I both have taken that. We're both big believers in that. It was super interesting, right? I mean, what are your
my top strengths?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll go through these quickly. But I love StrengthsFinder. I think it is a super powerful tool. It's beyond just a personality test or the Myers-Briggs or anything like that. This is really like to help you understand you and your team's true strengths. And then there's like this whole methodology that Clifton and Gallup sort of promote when it comes to playing to your strengths, right? So I really believe in that. And I have my entire team go through this process and then share. But my particular strengths are: number 1, achiever; number 2, learner. No big surprise there.
No surprise.
Number 3 is input, which is a really interesting one. I don't think I've met very many people with the in their top 5 input. Okay, so do you know what input is?
I don't. What is that one? Forget what I just said. We're going into Clifton StrengthsFinder. What is input?
Sorry. I love this
it's
stuff.
fascinating. What is what's input?
So input specifically, and I paraphrasing, is the collection of sometimes objects, but more often the collection of knowledge. So these people like to have little insights and have little nuggets and have little pearls of wisdom in their back pocket. And that is so me. I don't collect things. I'm very sort of a minimalist when it comes to physical things, but I love collecting knowledge. It's part of my learner, which is, again, my second strength. And anyone who has played trivia against me knows that I'm a pretty top contender, because I just love getting those little nuggets of information and being like, oh, hey, did you know? I'm that person at the party that you don't want to get cornered with, because I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, did you know this thing?
Right. Or thank God they found you, because, they can just throw a couple softball questions out and you run with it. That's interesting. So a collector and purveyor of knowledge.
Yes.
Interesting little tidbits. Achiever, learner, input.
And yes. So my 4 and 5 are harmony and positivity, which are definitely assets, I think, when it comes to my managerial strengths as a team leader. I lead a team of about, over 20 marketers at this point. And I am very happy to be working with these people. I could not imagine a better team. And with all of the challenges and, hard times that we have to go through as business people do, my strength of harmony, bringing people together and trying to make sure that everyone is uplifted. And then, of course, positivity. I think those are real assets for my team.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you want in a leader. And we have something else in common, is that servant leadership. And I think this is a great segue into our final topic about talent. So give everyone your, overview. What is servant leadership? I think it's, I think it's how everyone should be leading, if you ask me.
Yes. So I am so glad that we had like our little conversation, Tony. And for any listeners, like we were just jiving off of each other so much, because I get excited about this stuff. And apparently Tony does too, specifically about servant leadership. And the way that I think of servant leadership is, there's this sort of old school thinking of, all right, I'm the leader of this team, or I'm managing these people. My job is to tell them what to do. Sort of more of a dictatorship almost. This is what you need to achieve. This is the goal that you're supposed to do. And this is how you're supposed to do it. And if you're not doing it in the way that I see fit, then I'm going to come in and kick over your sandcastles. And that's really not servant leadership. The way that I see servant leadership and the way that I see my role of leading my team is not from the front. It is from underneath. Supporting each individual contributor, supporting each of my managers, supporting each of my leaders in the best way that I can. I see my role as trying to remove obstacles from their path, or trying to help them remove obstacles from their own paths or from their own team's paths, so that they can shine at what they do best. And that's why having the knowledge of what your strengths are is so important. If you don't know where you are currently, like if you don't know what your strengths are, how do you know how you can hone them? How do you know how you can get better at them? You may have a gut feeling about them, but really being able to identify them and write them down on paper and share what that actually means for you and your team is pretty critical, in my opinion. It also allows you to lean into those strengths every single day and get better at them, practice them as if it was, exercise, or that you're trying to build this particular muscle. You look at your strengths as a muscle that you're trying to build. So the leader is meant to allow people and help people recognize what those strengths are, and help hone them and help get them so much better and so much sharper. But then there's, of course, the question of, all right, well, great. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses, right? Or strengths and areas of opportunity. And what do you do with those weaknesses? Do you try to correct them? Do you try to gloss over them? In servant leadership, it tells us that but you do need to manage around them. So what does that look like? Managing around a weakness means that you are going to try to allow the person to, first of all, recognize what that weakness is and help them recognize ways to get around it. So that might be pulling in resources from a different person or a different area. It might be developing systems or processes that allow you to overcome that weakness. But I don't think it is correcting the weakness. And I don't think that spending all of your time trying to correct weaknesses is a good use of anyone's time. You should be spending the majority of your time honing your strengths and making those better. So again, going back to the servant leadership sort of philosophy, how can I help these people? How can I help remove obstacles? How can I help them improve their strengths? How can I help them be better? And how can I help them excel in their professional and personal life as much as possible?
When I hire someone new, the first thing I do the first day is maybe I should even do it before I hire them. I've debated doing that too. But first day is they take the Clifton Strengths Finder, and then the team gets together. And the team knows their strengths. So we kind of put the current team up on the board, and then the new person comes in and they have to kind of bare their soul. It's like, this is what I do well. This is, and then you can kind of see how the team fits together. So I have found that very helpful, and it lets you own what you do really well. So for me, I'll just mention my top two here. My first one's activator, and my second one is ideation. So I'm great in a startup. I'm great in a situation where there's a roadblock. We can't, we're stuck. We got to get moving. We need some new ideas. I'm the person you bring in. That's what, and that's really why I like the line of work that I'm in, because it's a very collaborative type of situation with my clients. My clients have a problem. They've got to get some action going. And with that combined with my ideation, I'm real creative. I can think of different ways to attract people, to message, to position. This podcast is a good example of that. This is kind of a unique way for me to stay out there, in front of people. It's just, another idea that I had. And, telling the team, showing the team, this is what I'm really strong at. But guess what? If you come to me and you want, the 5 lines of data, 5 lines deep of data, that's not me, I'm not the data nerd. I see the need for it, right? I have to bring those people in to support me. If I'm in a situation where someone needs a lot of data, hey, I need help. I got to get that information up. So I think that's a beautiful way to kind of explain that. Did you go through any kind of formal training on this, or did you read some books? How can people kind of tap into this?
I have done a little bit of reading in some of the Gallup curriculum, and It's the Manager is a great Gallup book that I really appreciate. And it's not one of those books that, like they say, you would read on a nonstop flight from Chicago to LA. It's one of those things that you can pull in when you have particular instances as a manager, or when you have particular challenges, and sort of get a little bit of a specific event help on, which I feel is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just kind of go to it as a resource guide. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Well, this has just been absolutely fantastic. I've loved that you allowed me to kind of pick your brain all around marketing. But before we go, you mentioned you've got a pretty good sized team. You guys are obviously growing a lot of great things. Is there anything that your company is looking to do or to hire? People who are listening, maybe they would want to contact you. Do you have any current needs that you might just want to put out there for people to hear about?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Tessa Bicard or Tessa Norton Bicard. You can find me on TikTok with lots of marketing geeky stuff and some really, really bad lip syncing at Big Red Marketing Boss is my handle.
Big Red Marketing Boss. That's your handle on TikTok. Okay.
Yes. And we are hiring at Trifecta. Yes, we're actively hiring in pretty much every department. So whether that's operations, development, engineering, HR, marketing. Yes, we're growing quickly. And so we have lots of opportunities. You can visit our website at trifectanutrition.com. There are some job postings up there currently, but there's also other opportunities that come up. And also, Tony, if it's okay, I have a discount code for any interested listeners who might want to try Trifecta.
Yes, I'm writing this down as you speak. Go ahead. What's the discount
All right.
code?
So if you'd like to get 40% off your first order from Trifecta, you can enter coupon code WAW40 for Winning at Work 40, and you'll get 40% off your first order.
Winning at Work 40. That's great.
Yeah, so WAW40 at the checkout.
WAW40. Okay, and that's a discount code. Well, we'll definitely get that tagged and linked so everyone can get out there and get their Hard Body Harry on, or what was the other one? Kitchen.
We've got Meal Prep Megan.
Meal Prep Megan.
Yes, we have a whole slew of them.
That's fantastic. I think everyone's going to go back now and go through these buyer personas and come up with great names. And in fact, when I do get this tagged on LinkedIn, I would love to hear what some of the buying personas that you guys have for some of your brands. And let's see if there's some good ones that we can kind of copy. Tessa, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much, Tony. This has been super fun.